going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be finishing up the last bit of fab on my VR6 swapped Audi RS3. But before we get to do that, we need to build, as you can see, this kind of overhang. I have this extra piece left over when I bought the metal sheet when we did this giant work table last year, now it's turned into like a welding station, workstation now because it's heavy duty. And originally when I built this table, we wanted to just put engines, transmissions up here so we can stand up and not have to deal with anything, but it's really turned into my own more personal workspace. So I have a lot of leftover material from the stuff that I bought to make this table. And what I want to do now is make a secondary kind of like engine slash transmission coffee table. Not as high, something about maybe 30, maybe 28 inches tall. It's heavy duty, it's really, really thick. And I want to be able to pull the motor and the trans, put it on here and have a rolling adjustable seat, kind of roll around it and work, as opposed to taking up my workspace. So now I can weld, fabricate, drill, do whatever I need to on the work table, and then have this secondary table here to have the engine and transmission on, and we'll have some rolling chairs around it so we're nice and comfortable. I wanted to continue on with the fab really quick to install the transfer case that goes on the back side of the transmission underneath the turbo kit. But it doesn't fit between the subframe and the actual engine, and I don't want to jiggle everything around, just kind of stuff it in there. So what I'm going to do is essentially take everything out. It's about 30 minutes worth of work. I'll pull the intercoolers, just two bolts on each side, pull the radiator support, which is just a couple bolts on each side, and then the subframe support mounts, and then 4 bolts on the trans, and 2 bolts on the trans, and then 2 bolts on the engine. So I'm gonna pull this engine out. We'll get it on my newly fabbed work table slash engine and trans table here. We're gonna install the transfer case, and then we'll go on from there. So one last piece of fab, guys. The reason why this is happening and I need to install the transfer case is because I need to finish the downpipe. I don't want to start it with the downpipe pretty much 50% done, which that's what it is. It basically just goes underneath the turbo kit, but it still needs to go under and out on the back of the car. In order to do that and know the clearances, I need to put the transfer case on the transmission and install the drive shaft to make sure I get the perfect clearances. And what's really important with that is a lot of really skilled fabricators can kind of mock up where everything's supposed to be, but I'm using a 4-inch downpipe, which no RS3 is using, that's going all the way out to the back of the car. So this is a full 4-inch turbo back exhaust system, which is about a 1/2 inch or so bigger than any of the 5-cylinder stuff that's out there. So I need to make sure that it's made perfect. And plus, I'm not really a skilled fabricator. I'm really new to welding, so I want to give myself every chance for doing this right instead of having to cut it, remake it, and just, you know, waste a bunch of time. So about 30, maybe 40 minutes of work to pull it, get it on the engine stand table that I'm about to fabricate here with you guys, here with all the spare material. Did I say material? I meant material. So yeah, let me get to making that, and then we'll start pulling the motor and trans. And then it's actually gonna be kind of sick. You guys see the turbo kit and all the components and the wastegate. Pretty much everything's set up outside the car. And then once we get it back in, we'll make the downpipe, everything set. I'll pull it again. And then we'll set up the motor for its first start. So once the motor is prepped, and again, this is just the stock motor. The built motor is pretty much getting machined right now. Then it'll come back here for assembly. We'll start wire up. And I got some huge updates what's coming up with Cyvex. Been chatting with Ryan over there. There's a few modifications that have to happen to the Cyvex S7 ECU, some drivers that have to get changed out as well. And we're going to be swapping out a few things, but it's so awesome that we're going to get the Cyvex sorted. We're going to start wiring up the car, getting that ready, and then firing up here in the next few weeks. So yeah, let's. I think this intro is long enough. Let's get to making this table. We'll pull the motor, get it out here, get the transfer case on, and then get it back in, and let's get this downpipe fabricated so we can finish fabrication for now and get this car wired up. Guys, it's complete. Added some upper braces just to go all the way around to make sure that the legs don't try to split. Again, MIG welded this. Haven't used the little titanium MIG machine we bought from Harbor Freight, but it works really well. And so far, I haven't blown the breaker yet. So it turns out that the actual wiring that the electricians put in for the welder and the 220 for the TIG machine work really well. So far so good, guys. It's like a rock. This thing ain't going nowhere, but it's heavy as hell. So I gotta wait for Stop to come over to help me flip this thing over. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna crush my feet. Oh, and let me just tell you something. I have to learn from this. So take me as an example. When you're welding, building stuff in a garage, moving shit around, don't wear sandals in the garage and shorts. Put on some jeans. Don't be like my dumbass and come in here with a t-shirt thinking I'm like at a Greek barbecue, you know, and coming in here welding. Sparks flying in my sandals. I had to like flick my sandal like 15 feet across the fucking garage. I learned my lesson. Moving on, and like the next scene you'll see me in, I'll have some pants and some shoes on to protect myself. Wear your PPE. I'm telling you, don't be a dumbass like me. Put your stuff on. Keep yourself safe. Because it ain't worth it. I thought I'd be cool. I just throw on my sandals and be cool. Yeah, I don't feel so cool with hot molten metal falling between my toes. That shit wasn't cool. All right, motor is out. And it's on the custom work table. And it moves around really nicely. You know, it is heavy. Don't get me wrong. The table is also coming with a lot of weight. But this is so awesome. Now I can use like a adjustable rolling chair, work around it. Still have the work table top, which holds now basically the entire turbo kit minus the 40% downpipe that I made, the 4-incher. So, yeah, we're gonna let me talk about the transfer case. So I didn't install this. I took it off when we got rid of the 5-cylinder motor, and I was like, you know, I could just throw it back on. There's plenty of room. There's actually not for me to get it on there unless you're gonna pull off the pan, and I didn't want to just create a whole mess when it'll just take me about 30-35 minutes to just pull this motor, put on the transfer case, put it back in, throw the turbo on top, and just fab the rest of the downpipe. So that's it. The transfer case installs basically right here onto the DQ500. And this bracket, like I was telling you about, this one here used to bolt right up to the 5-cylinder motor. There is 2 hole ports here on the side of the R32 engine, the VR6. So I'm gonna either see if I can shape this to my will, or if not, just use this as a template and make a new plate so the transfer case can also bolt to the side of the block, as it uses that for extra leverage and support. Because once this transfer case goes on, the axle passenger side slides right into here, and then the drive shaft slides right into here. So it uses this block, and imagine now a cast iron, basically boat anchor, is gonna be holding this thing down. So with that being said, guys, I'm gonna throw on this transfer case, and I'll show you guys what the clearance is underneath the tubular manifold. The transfer case is on to the DQ500 RS3 transmission. As you can see, there's plenty of room on the bottom where it clears the manifold. Again, the lower axle will just kind of bolt onto there. You know, with the tubular being a little bit lower than the 5-cylinder was up on top, I'm not too worried about heat down there, but we may build a small little heat shield just to make sure that the axle stays cool, as this thing's gonna be pumping out a lot of heat, a lot of power. I'm gonna be dumping a lot of fuel into this. So let's get this back in the car, okay? And we're just gonna basically just mount it to the trans and to the front of the motor mount, just so it sits in the bay. And let's see what kind of clearance we have and where this downpipe is gonna travel. As you know, before, this turbo was pretty much mounted right here. So I had it, where did I have it? Like right here. So it was already traveling a little bit underneath. So I may be able to get away with throwing a couple 45s, maybe even a 90, and then traveling around. And the goal is pretty much that downpipe's gonna come around this way, come around, and wherever this drive shaft is where I'm gonna design and build that downpipe to either come around on the driver's side or the passenger side, depending on how much room is inside the trans tunnel. So there's a bunch of heat shields here. Don't mind this fuel line. We still gotta yank a whole bunch of stuff out, but we gotta get the drive shaft and the 4-inch downpipe. So we may need to massage some of these like 50,000 heat shields that are here, and we'll massage them into place. So this way everything is pretty much against the wall on the inside. But I think we got plenty of room from where I'm thinking. So maybe that downpipe will travel right through there, and the drive shaft is gonna come right on the right of that. I'm not sure. So let's get the motor in. Let's see how much room we got so I can make this downpipe and move on, because it's game time. We got to get this thing together. Now that we have pretty much almost everything fabricated, I want to hear this thing. I want to see what it sounds like, or hear what it sounds like, and just get this thing moving on its own power. Motor in. Look how much room. Now that I removed that heat shield, which is going to go back on. So I moved it for fabrication's sake, but look, that's a giant amount of space around that drive shaft, and right under there is going to be that shifter cable. So I'm thinking about maybe putting a small clamp on it, as the physical cable doesn't move, just the internal does on this little shaft here. So I can mount it and then maybe make my own custom heat shield that travels the length of the car, because that metal one, what's up Cleo? That metal one that was under there, it's janky as hell. It just moves around, bounces around. and it takes up a lot of space that I don't think it should. So, I mean, mind you, this is obviously original manufacturers that wasn't thinking about people making 4-inch plus downpipes and making VR6 swaps in their cars, so they didn't account for that. But I'm gonna remove this and I'm gonna use sections of it. But coming up to the front of the tunnel, I think I'm gonna make my own out of that really heat-resistant cloth that they sell, and just kind of wrap the bottom and make sure that it looks really nice and clean. And it's gonna give me the most amount of space around this trans tunnel, or quote-unquote drive shaft tunnel. So I'm gonna get the turbo on. Again, this is the stock motor, so you know, don't flip out that I have the valve cover off. I don't want to scratch up the billet one there, but threw the motor back in, installed the drive shaft. Yeah, let's make this downpipe. I'm gonna throw the turbo on, throw the mock-up downpipe that I made, and see where it is, and then we'll just start mocking it up. Now I'm gonna have all this space to kind of visualize, mark things, come back up, and I'm gonna move all of these parts. This is essentially the turbo kit from the VR6 car with all the intercooler pipes and stuff. So I'm gonna remove that. We'll place it on the table temporarily. We'll have a lot of workspace so we can tack, mock up, and then actually finish our downpipe. And again, this is the beginning of it. When I first started TIG welding, this is one of the pieces that I learned on. So the TIG welds in stainless are not the best, but they were purged, all back purged, and I did it, at least tried to do it proper. So we'll continue on with that, and since I want to kind of remember this as being my first piece made, even though it has a bunch of mistakes on it, I think it's still usable. And if I need to, I can go over a lot of the little seams and whatnot and redo them, but it's okay. We'll roll with this and we'll continue on making it. And a bunch of my 4-piece 90s, 45s, and then the tight radius 90s that came in, so I'll be able to use those underneath the car, and we'll finally finish this downpipe and then throw our flex joint on there, which is going to be one of these bad boys. So let's get on. We're going to start tacking this up. I think what I'm going to do, and I'm sorry if I didn't mention before in the beginning of the video, instead of bouncing back and forth time-lapse, I'm just going to put all the time-lapse towards the end of the video. So you guys will see the progress here as I discuss it, showcase it, the end result. And I know a lot of you guys had messaged us saying, well, we want to see more time-lapse, please slow the footage down. Before I would speed up the time-lapse footage because it'd be in the middle of the video and I didn't want to bore anybody, but if you guys want to see the time-lapse, I'm just going to include it at the end of the video so you guys can see from start to finish all the time-lapse, and that'll be just that section for those that don't want to hear me talk and just want to see time-lapse. But for those that do want to hear my annoying voice and what we're doing in between, I'm going to continue on like this, and again, time-lapse towards the end. Going up to speed. The second portion of the downpipe is made. I opted to make this in 2 pieces, and I'll show you why. As normally you have to pop out the drive shaft to get the downpipe out, and that happens with the 5-cylinder, right? So as you see, the first part of that, let's see if I can grab a light real quick and show it. Excuse the mess, guys. So you see that first part of the downpipe? Put a flange on there, it's going to connect there. So I can take the downpipe off without having to drop this drive shaft, and it'll slide right through here, and all I have to do is take the compressor cover off, and it'll come right through here. And it's a lot easier than popping off the drive shaft, having to jack it up, get underneath, remove the exhaust system too. Literally just the downpipe change if I needed to. Let's say if I wanted to throw the up pipe for the drag setup, I'll literally just do it through here. That being said, the second portion I tacked up pretty much and got it ready. I want to get the engine out again, and I want to get it on the rolling engine / transmission stand. I want to show you guys what it looks like so we can get a back view of the turbo kit, and then I'm going to start seam welding this bad boy to get it all done. And then I got to fabricate this last little bit, the wastegate dump tube. I think I'm going to splice it into the downpipe right here, and then for a track setup, I'll have a hater pipe coming up, 4-inch one, and then one coming off the wastegate going through the hood, and I'll have to get a spare hood so I don't have to destroy this one that I started sticking stickers on this like 2-3 years ago. So yeah, let's get this going. I'm gonna take the turbo off, the downpipe off, and then we're gonna yank this motor out. Again, this is the stock motor, this is not the built motor, so don't worry about tools being on top. It junkyard motor that literally hasn't run since it came out of the junkyard. We're gonna clean her up and allow her to fire, but it's not going to make any power on this. This is not going to be the one we're throwing boost at because it's bone stock. So let's get this motor out. Let's clean up that rolling engine / transmission stand, and I'll mock up the turbo kit and show you guys what I put together. All right, guys, the turbo kit is mocked up. The downpipe is pretty much done. I just got to seam weld it. We got the intercooler parts there on the side we're going to reinstall. Those we also made here. Excuse some of the noob aluminum welding and stainless steel welding you guys saw there. We started a few months ago learning TIG, and we're progressing on, becoming better, learning, testing our skills and becoming a little bit better at fabrication. But this is the 3.2 liter VR6 mocked up and bolted pretty much to the RS3 DSG transmission. Again, don't mind it being dirty. We're going to clean this up and get this ready to go back inside so we can start wiring up here in the next week or two. What's left to be done pretty much, I'm going to be seam welding this and including it into the time lapse. So towards the end of this video, right after this little outro is done, you guys will see all the time lapse that kind of encompasses what we had to do here. For those of you guys that want to identify the parts here, it's the HST tubular manifold that, again, we didn't make as we're not there with skill level and pretty much talent to be able to make our own tubular manifolds, but the downpipe, the dump pipe, the intake system, the intercooler piping, we made. So about 95 to 98% of the components on this engine are made by us here in just the regular home garage using Harbor Freight welders, ProTig 205, and then for the table that we made earlier today as the video started out, it's the titanium MIG 140. That being said, guys, the only thing left to do, I'm going to go over this for a quick second. We got the Syvex ECU, and we're going to have a full episode on all the upgrades and tidbits that they're going to be doing to this to get this to work with the VR6. Syvex wants it back so they can add some new drivers and make some modifications on the inside of the board. But as soon as we get it back, Syvex, Ryan, actually from Syvex, already provided us with a pinout to have it all ready to go so we can pin it out perfectly to the RS3. This thing will fire up and start and idle just like a stock RS3, but it's going to sound fucking glorious. So that being said, guys, I'm going to get this bad boy out here tomorrow, and as soon as that's done and we get it back, we can continue with the wire up. Right now, we're just going to take this thing apart, throw the flywheel on, all the gaskets, valve cover gaskets, O-rings, take off the oil pan, make sure there's no sludge in there. Again, we're going to do the first start with the stock motor, and when the machine block comes back, we'll assemble it, build it, and then swap it out. But all the fabrication will pretty much be done. And you guys saw in this video, in the time lapse, the pull really took only about 30 minutes. So it's really easy to pull these motors as opposed to the B5. There's not a lot involved, and it's easier to handle because of the way the transmission's designed. One thing I want to touch on, guys, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys for all the support. The subscribership is really bumped up, a few hundred every few days, which is amazing, especially for a small channel like ours. We thank you guys for coming aboard and taking this journey with us. As you guys know, we started the VR6 swap in the RS3 just a few months ago, and here's where we are today. Making parts, fitting them, customizing, and getting an engine that never came in the car ever, especially nearly a brand new car, to fit and look beautiful, especially with an aftermarket turbo kit. And later on down the line, we are going to be racing and attempting to go fast. So stick around, guys, as we continue to build this, develop this, and get this car up and running as we learn and progress for ourselves and become better builders. That being said, guys, thank you again for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. I'm George. We'll see you guys next time.